You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. Now, to my take, and I title my take, Why the OSP Must Be in Our Eyes, Our Ears, and in our hearts. Watch this.
Minim say day one, and I'm say amount for me bano upon resistance no man. This time they will regroup, get more forces, put their resources together, and fight one person. 80 minimum way no so no minimum amount for strength. Minimum be a financial limit. Minimum be a financial limit. Or minimum be a financial limit. 80 minimum how much they can easily pull and how when you have maybe 1 million Ghana, you can give away a be 1,000 and they be called primary. They pay 1,200. The other time, the minimum we paid around 3,000 Ghana cedis per person. I'm telling you, say, to come the baby primary in dollars. Has been secured long ago. I must be frank with you. Just say, and yet I'm a demensa, ebe cancer, get money. I have dollars there for that premise. What I can tell my delegate is say, we'll be a contesting just can be to be I'll pay more than that. And no day they should take it from me because I have enough money. Come boom. No mutual 10,000 per delegate. I'll pay more than 10,000 cedis per delegate. You pay to maybe they go 20,000. I'll pay more than 20,000 because what I know how much I'll put there. I know how much I've reserved. It's now this kind of year in dollars. So the end say.
Right. That's the Honorable Alfred Obeng Boateng. He's the MPP MP for Bebieni Anyaso, the Choir constituency in the Western North region. What he said, because he rendered part of it in English, I suppose our English viewers understood him. Guess what? He's speaking to the reality. He's speaking to the normal. And therefore, the party, as in the NPP, may not find this offensive. The delegates in the constituency, whom he declares that he knows that those who want to contest him are likely to pay them a lot of money. That is, bribe. Are likely to give them money. Bribe. They are likely to take bribe. And that he will do far more than any of his contenders will do if they showed up. He was speaking on, this was first brought to the attention of the public on Sumpa FM. Now, I contacted the producers, the presenters, and have confirmed. And there is another interview that he grants. Very sickening. He grants and defends these very comments. He justifies them. Justifies them. In fact, he says he saved the money in dollars because that is how he can secure the money against inflation. His constituents, mark it on the wall, they'll vote for him because you know why? He will pay the most. There may be someone who may be more competent than him, but because you'll be able to pay more than anybody else, as he has planned to do, he will be elected to get into parliament. What does that tell you about us, those who vote the political leaders into office? What does that tell you? But once again, make no mistake, this is something he has said publicly and is justifying it. It is the very normal, when the Afrobarometer talks about the normalization of corruption in this country, this is what it is talking about. When the GBA organizes a press conference, and the GBA hardly does this, organizes a press conference and tells the president that he must do more than he's currently doing to fight corruption, this is what they mean. Corruption normalized. Bribe giving and taking normalized. And guess what? The other MPs and contestants, they may not say this publicly, but this is the kind of conversation they have privately and in meetings and strategizing how to win elections. Is this the country that we want to live in? That people can boldly say in public that they have saved dollars enough and they decided not to save in cedis. People who are members of parliament sitting in the House of Parliament, people who have been ex-appointees of the government, serving in public office, can say this publicly and return on the 17th of October on Sompa FM to justify these comments. I repeat my call on the OSP, particularly on as regards its regulation 31, which says it must work to prevent corruption. And among the things it must do to prevent corruption is to undertake anti-corruption programs, education and information of the public, and publicizing detecting acts of corruption. The OSP, SHRAJ, IOCO, the NCCE, all must get on board because the fight is lost. It's lost. Something ought to be done and immediately so that people's psyche, people's thinking, there will be a certain renewing of the mind to avoid plunging this country into what should not come upon us. Normalization of corruption must not be. And that is my take. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And we're going straight to some of the areas that have been affected. You know, there are 9 districts that have been affected by the spillage of the Akosombo and the Pong dams. And we are told that they continue to count the numbers. And as of this morning, the NADMO is confirming 31,000, persons that have been affected. We want to try and appreciate the circumstances that they find themselves as we, hold duty bearers to account and also seek help, immediate help for the people involved in this. I'm talking to Henry Cosmos Amevo first. He's a businessman who has lost what he says close to 200,000 Ghana cedis, and he cannot think about how he's going to recover or, as it were, bounce back in his business. Harry, good morning. Thank you for joining us on Newsfile.
Good morning, Mr. Odami.
This is Samson Lardy.
Oh, sorry, Samson Lardy.
Right, so you were speaking to my producer there, Odame. Right, now we understand that you've lost a lot. I'm looking at the pictures of what it is that you do. Where exactly are you? Where is your business located? What do you do? And what has happened to it?
Thanks for the question. Precisely, I live at Bato, and I run a business at Mefe, Sugar Copper, Adam, and part of Abidoma.
What do you do in this business? I'm seeing the pictures, but until we put them on the screens, tell our audience what it is that you do.
I sell toiletries.
Toiletries.
That is, yeah, toilet roll, tissue, mention them. Addition to that, take away packs. Ghana must go. Number 5 sack, number 4 sack, and eat rubbers.
And in all 4 or 5 places where you have your shops, they have been affected?
Yes, please, they have been affected. I have vans that distribute the goods on credit basis so that a week later you go for the cash or the money.
So what has happened to your goods at this time? And you are assessing that you would have lost about how much so far?
I'm assessing I lost close to 200 Ghana cedis. Do I say 200? That's the OCD 2 million, close to. OCD is 2 million, close to. What happened was we distributed the goods a week before we go for the money, but before we realized the water came over. And the people that credit the goods from us, we were not able to locate them. And the ones that were able to locate, we can't demand money from them because of the situation in which they are. I supposed to help them in a way by buying food for them, giving them water. You can imagine the situation. At this stage, demanding money for them, that was not the right thing for me to do.
So you have lost 200,000 Ghana cedis. What's going through your mind? We are looking at the vans and the stash of, all of these things. What's going through your mind? How you intend after everything is over to stay afloat as a business person?
My brother, just imagine, be in my shoe. You can get the issue for me. I'm traumatized. I can't even eat. So now we are appealing to the state or the government to come into our aid by helping us. We take a loan if the bank will accept us and give us a grace period to pay the money. And if they give us physical cash money, who are we going to sell the goods to? Who will do the business with us? That's the main one. The people are nowhere to be found. And the place is in the mesh. For instance, Sogakoko, for example, I have about 10 hotels over there that I supply them. As now, almost 7 is in the river, not in the water, it's in the river. So assuming I have a capital, what am I going to do? Brother, just imagine the situation in which
about 7 hotels that you supply to have been submerged.
Yeah, about 10, almost 7 have submerged.
So presently, yourself and your family, are you safe?
Oh, by the grace of Jehovah, we are safe.
What sort of help are you getting in that direction?
Come again.
What sort of help are you getting in terms of moving away from danger, being resettled in a place temporarily, and food and the like?
Oh, by the grace of Jehovah, the one that will take care of us for now, we are getting it. But other people, I was told NADMO is giving relief items, but it's only hardly for some people to get. Some are getting, but some are not getting. That is why me as a businessman, I have to find means and support some of my customers, but not all of them. So we'll be much happy if it can come to our aid in other ways, which will be higher than as they were doing now.
Okay. Harry, thank you very much for making the time to join us this morning. And we are with you. We are also, through our platform, appealing to Ghanaians to come to the aid of those of you who have been affected, 31,000 in 9 districts. That's a huge one. There's a call on the government to declare an emergency, state of emergency to improve, the help that must come in. But it does look like the government has a firm, grip of the circumstances and is attending to same. Here in the studio, Alexander Segbefia, Director, NDC International Relations Directorate. You have been following over the week what has happened. Tell us what is going through your mind as, a leader, as an elder, obviously in a community, and what the people are going through and what you are also processing ought to happen.
Well, good morning, Samson, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. This is clearly a very sad position to find ourselves in Ghana. So firstly, let me commiserate with all those who are involved. The 31,000 are those who are directly involved, but there's an indirect spillage of others who get into, who have been affected by this. And I think that before I go into the causes, let's look at what is immediately important. People need the three basics, which is, and I won't do it in the order that is normally dealt with, because actually the first is shelter now. And then we look at food, and then we get to clothing. So normally they say food, clothing, and shelter, but in this case we say shelter, food, and clothing.
All right.
So shelter becomes key, and we have to find a way to actually ensure that all these 31,000 displaced people, and more to come, because the slipways haven't been closed. There's water still coming from the dam. So there should be a plan, we hope, in place to say if this escalates or goes beyond a certain place, others who are in vulnerable areas have been identified, and there are steps to try and evacuate them even before it gets to them. So that is key for me in terms of whatever planning they are going about now. Then you have to look at the health issues that are going to be generated by the amount of water and stagnant water in the area, which is polluted.
Yeah.
Major concern.
I've seen videos where, the homes that have been submerged, of course, there are places where you have places of convenience, which have all been submerged. And now it's beginning to sort of dry up a bit. But what is coming up? It's horrible. It's difficult.
Yes. And the worst part is that because of lack of water, people are now beginning to try and use the polluted water. That is worrying, because that is where the problems will begin in a big way. So when we say food, actually we mean potable water, right. Water that people can use to drink, to cook, and to bathe. And we have to prioritize that aspect. And that, I hope, is being done. I want to commend all the people, including Joy FM, who are making efforts to get donations, contributions, and there are many organizations who have understood the nature of the disaster and are helping. But what is key is the coordination. Because if it's not coordinated, some will get, some will not. And it may not even be used rightly. And
there are even people who may seek to profit from this.
Amen. That is actually the biggest issue in some of these issues. So it's important that there is a central coordination point. Historically, because of some experiences, and it's no fault, COVID being the number one, the government has to go an extra step to convince people that they are the best people to deal with such issues. Because people are more interested in, I'll do it myself.
Look at that building. Completely gone. Yeah. So
I don't know how people's
it's just uninhabitable.
Yeah.
It's just uninhabitable.
It's a complete disaster.
And you have to also think about, even when it recedes, what happens? Can you still habit this place?
Well, there's that. How are your foundations strong enough? Are the walls going to be able to hold? You could be there in your house and all of a sudden it collapses on you. So you need people to go and look at the structures to say, this is safe, you have to reinforce this, you have to do this. But then the question that you must also ask is, if it happens again in a year or two, what steps are we taking to ensure that these buildings, their slipways, new
avenues for the water.
So the dam has been spilled over the years.
Yes.
And when we engage with the authorities, they may share with us the specific numbers. So since it was constructed, I think, as I understand, it was purposefully done when it's to the brim. They have to open the floodgates. Yeah. But when they do, we understand that there's even an opportunity to sort of harness the water that they were supposed to spill. And they have done that over the years, repeatedly. The thing now is why this particular spillage has caused this kind of damage.
Well, I think that, first, let me start from the onset. There are two people are saying act of God, act of God. No. Yes, the level of rainfall, climate change, even climate change, they blame humans, but the level of rainfall, act of God, we take that. There's water in a dam. It's man that opens or closes. So this is an act of man, which had a genesis of act of God in terms of rainfall.
And an opening that you have no option.
You have no option. You must
because
open.
If you don't, you break the dam.
And then it's worse. Totally. I mean, also the dam, if the dam goes, half of Accra may even go. I mean, according to the engineers. So you have a situation where the dam has to be opened. But these are engineers. They know volume of water. They know how much water is going to be coming out. Or they can forecast. They've done simulations. So they had to have had an idea. And I think the biggest problem was lack of communication or the urgency of the communication. You needed to let people know that this was coming in a way where they would have been evacuated in a timely fashion. What we should be talking about now is, Kwesi and Yao were so stubborn, they didn't leave. So there's one family here that we didn't get. Now we have to take boats and go and bring them. No, that's not what is happening. The whole area, everybody seemed to have remained. So there wasn't really, for me, a communication strategy that ensured that people would leave the area.
But as we engage them shortly, they seek to say that, and the people also confirm, that there had been engagement starting sometime, was it in May or June, of sensitization, all through to the point where they began to open the spillways.
This is where I'm saying that I don't say there's no communication. I'm saying the level of urgency was non-existent. Why? In the past, let's start with Akosombo Dam first, they had 4 turbines. Now, with the refit and retrofitting, they have 6. 2, in the past, when we've had to open, you open 2, sometimes 3 slipways for it to go in that order in terms of the turbines. This time, they had to open all 6. So we are in uncharted territory, but you also know that this is going to be worse than anything we have done in the past. So the urgency of communication becomes a matter of norm. You should have gone in there and said, we are coming to enter, there's going to be flooding, move out. Move your things. Even if it meant getting in touch with NADMO and the government to bring in security agencies to literally get people out. But to just say you're going on radio and telling people, MPs didn't know about this. Chiefs didn't know about it. So even though there's communication out there, to what extent and to what level? Because not that it hasn't happened in the past. It has happened. But when you know you're going to open all, and it's going to run for a period, so now it's been open since the 15th of September. It's still not closed. And the rainfall doesn't even have to be in the area. These are tributaries where if there's still rain falling, the water is still going to be coming down. So at the moment, people are forecasting that nothing will change before the end of November. And that is a frightening thought. So there are definitely question marks that have to be answered in terms of planning and what went into the decision making based on the facts that people had.
Okay. Let's speak to them and find out what it is that they did and what they are doing now while we are in the situation we find ourselves now. Edward Eko Obing Kenzo is Deputy Chief Executive Engineering and Operations of the Volta River Authority, VRA. Thank you very much for making time to join us on Newsfile, sir.
Thank you, Samson.
Great.
Thank you so much.
I can imagine, is this a case where you have been overwhelmed? You have seen what you did not expect?
Once again, I would like to greet your listeners, and also would like to sympathize with all those who have been affected. As VRA, one of our mottos is that we add values to life. We say that those involved, those who have been affected, they are staffs of VRA, they are Ghanaians, they are one of us. We all live in this country together, and there are people, and we don't take it, should I say, likely that they've been affected in this way. We won't say that we are overwhelmed. When you talk of expertise of running hydropower plant, VRA is considered to be one of the best managed plants in the world. For the past 58 years, we've been operating this hydropower plant ourselves without any help from anybody. International bodies that have joined, when we go per skills and standard, they say we are doing extremely well. With operation of the dam over the period, we've charted what we call curves that we normally follow per the forecast that we normally get from international weather centers. With this chart, when the rain starts coming in, which peaks somewhere in September to the middle of October, we will normally know that at this volume of water coming in, this is where we end up with height in the lake. Per the chart that we're following, everything was normal as predicted by all the weather agencies. Comes August, we'll find out that the volumes coming in as predicted has gone a bit more than as predicted by percentage. From there, we saw that, look, if you allow this volume as predicted to stay behind the dam, where we'll get to is somewhere above 280. And beyond 277.5 feet of the dam, then the integrity of the dam is at risk. And if the integrity of the dam is at risk, then which means that we can break this dam, which we cannot allow it to happen. So from there, we said that, look, with these volumes coming, what do we do to make sure that we don't breach this dam? The room left in the dam was also a bit small. We should also remember that for the past 7 years, we've had consistent rainfall into the dam, average rainfall into the dam. So at least we have enough water in the dam. But as you deal with nature, you can also say that, look, this year, as predicted, that is going to be a El Nino year, which means 90% probability that it may not rain. The rain that will come is very, very small. You have only 10% that it may rain heavily. With that in mind, you have to assume that, look, in case the volumes come in, you just open these gates and all the water goes out to create more room so that if in case the rains will come in, you can absorb or contain the water. And the rain stops to come somewhere in the middle of September. What happens? Which means we've depleted the amount of water in the dam. You can't use, if you deplete the amount of water, the consequence is that you are not going to get enough water to generate power to meet the demand in the system, because you have to manage this water for another season when the rain should come in again. And that is what we did. When it comes to competencies and professionalism of our staff, we are on top, and we knew what we were doing. Our forecasts were on point, and were exact as, and we're exact as we find ourselves today. I won't say we're overwhelmed at all. The decision taken to spill was to start in small volumes, also to at least monitor, because if I start in small volumes, going forward, in case there's not enough rain, I can just close my spillway gate. I'll preserve my water in the dam and use it for power generation. In case the volumes continues to increase, then I can increase the spillway gate to discharge more water. We started with 20,000 cubic feet per second, which is the same as almost half of the volume that normally comes through all the systems if they are running. The banks of the river was not inundated. Monitoring the data also showed that the rains were still coming. Tracking the rain showed that it was raining somewhere from the eastern part of the eastern borders of our country into and the northern part from Burkina Faso. So which means that we have to increase the gate opening to contain the amount of water coming. So from the 15th September we started spilling up to 30th September, the flooding in the communities was very, very minimal. We won't say that there was no inundation. There was slight inundation around, but it was extremely minimal, which did not really affect the communities that much. But with that also, with that said, when we did the simulation somewhere in May, which the communities were the actors of the simulation, were totally involved, as concluded, at least some will move when they see these volumes of water flowing through to safe havens, to maybe friends and families and what have you. So that was one of the expectations along the line. And we can say for fact, as we per records so far, at least we think the communities really knew what was coming. They were prepared. They took precautionary measures and evacuated themselves. That's why as of today we don't have any fatal incidents in the sense of somebody getting drowned in the water, somebody trapped in his house to be pulled out of it from the roof or something. But all said and done, to the question that you asked, I would say that we are competent enough and we're not overwhelmed with events. What we are seeing is as we predicted it should be.
Right. You started spilling on the 15th of September. When will it end?
Per our data, over the period of time, the rains subsides from middle of October to the end of October. For the past 72 hours, we've had zero rise of the lake, which means the amount of water coming in and amount leaving the dam is the same, which indicates that the data that the track that we are following and the data that we have indicate that the rains are subsiding. We are hoping, per the data means that maybe from today going, we may be seeing negative rise in the dam, meaning that the amount of water coming into the dam is less than the amount that we are discharging. So we have to start closing the gate. We are definitely sure that before we get to the end of this month, we'll be getting into those negatives and we'll start closing the gate gradually.
No guarantees. That's what I hear from you.
Oh, it's nature. With nature, you cannot say, okay, you can say tomorrow rains will stop, no water will come. No. But when we look at our tributaries in the north, Saboba and Nanuli, all the tributaries are receding. The amount of water coming in are reducing, which indicates that the volumes in those tributaries into the dams are reducing. But something it rains directly onto the dam. Those one you cannot predict, you cannot determine. Those are some of the things we are looking out for, that it shouldn't happen, that there should be a major storm directly on the dam, that can change the track that we are following. So as I said, towards the end of the month, we know that we'll be reducing the amount of volume that we are spilling out.
How do you explain why we see some people who are taken by surprise, quote unquote, surprise, because the water got to them before they began to move?
Samson, per our EPP protocols, when we know that we are going to spill, we'll communicate through all the agencies and through to the district assembly. The district assembly is the administrative head in the district. So definitely they'll communicate with the people in the community that this is coming. This is what VRA has alerted us. NADMO and co will also know, because NADMO is part of the district assembly structure. They also will be aware that this amount of water will be coming in. I would say per human beings sometimes we will say, well, let's wait and see. You won't fault them. As I would say, last year we sent out notice that we may spill. When we tracked the chart and the amount of water coming towards September, we saw that, look, the amount of water and the predictions will not be as expected. So we didn't spill. We didn't open the gate at all. So maybe at the back of their mind, last year they said they didn't spill. This year they started spilling small quantities. Maybe they will not get to the huge volume. So let's wait and see. The travel time of the water from Akosombo to maybe the communities, maybe about 24 to 48 hours. So you may be taken unawares if you are not ready to move when you saw those small volumes coming and you see the inundation increasing you want to wait. You
have had to spill this dam many times over the period, right?
Yes, this is the sixth time that we are spilling the dam.
Sixth time that you are spilling. This is extraordinary, correct?
This one is comparable to 1967 spillage.
1967?
Yes.
Okay.
It's comparable to that. Yeah.
Right. 1967, that would have been how many years after the dam was built?
About 4 years. 4 to 3 years when the dam was built.
Okay. So I imagine that you would have told yourself you needed to do things differently from how you do them normally in communicating with the people. Is that correct?
Samson, we developed the emergency preparedness plan when we stored in 2010 because of international standard. You're supposed to have these emergency plans in place. So we developed the emergency preparedness plan in 2010, which we have to involve all the agencies that need to be involved. That is the Ghana Armed Forces, NADMO, National Security, Police, Fire Service, Ambulance, and VRA, and the district itself. That's when we developed these protocols in place, where we have the level 1 spillage, level 2 spillage.
What I mean is that because you had this expectation, because you were not overwhelmed, and because this will be comparable only to one out of the 6 spillages that you have conducted, don't you think there may have been the need to, in your communication processes, include even removing some people by force?
Samson, for every level of spillage, we communicate to the community, as you said. The forced evacuation, that one, I don't think I can veer into it. I don't know the law that backs forced evacuation. As we speak today, there are some people who are still in their building that they don't want to evacuate, or they are scared that their things will be stolen. So it's a decision to be taken by NADMO whether they should forcibly evacuate them from the place to save their lives. That one, I have to find out whether there is that law that you can forcibly evacuate somebody from this.
Right. So if you are activating your emergency protocols to resolve this situation, a situation that you have planned for, I'm imagining that you are talking about the army, everybody, as in the presidency, the relevant ministries, everybody would have been on standby to ensure that there is such a coordinated execution that you will not today say there are some people who are there and prefer to be there for fear that if they move, their belongings will be stolen.
I think that call, I will leave it with NADMO and the District Assembly to make that call. For us, I think ours is the volumes coming, communicating to the agencies for them to act appropriately. So that is it that we are doing. But at the same time, we're following whatever is happening to see how best we can also be supportive. But we are together as a group.
We see that you are doing a lot in terms of call it the rescue or support efforts. Explain to my viewers and listeners the extent of what you are doing to at least ameliorate their present circumstances, this 31,000 people.
Samson, we are supporting NADMO. NADMO is the National Disaster Management Organization. They have the expertise in doing this. We are supporting them with the funds that they need in doing this, logistics that they need in doing this. That is what we are really doing. So far, we've voted 20 million in support for the activities of NADMO. We've also given some logistics which has to do with our water tankers to make sure there is water in the community being supplied to the community. We've also at least provided new pumping system at Aveime to make sure there's water supplied to the community because the pumps were submerged. All that we are thinking is how do we support NAMPO to make sure lives are saved? And that is what we are doing. Our hospital unit is also in the community. So far, we supported them, NADMO and then the Ghana Health Directorate in the district with about counting 1.5 million Ghana cedis worth of drugs, which we are still going to bring more as needed. Working with NADMO, we've also made sure that there are portable loos in the communities in conjunction with Zoom Lion to make sure the portable toilets are being well kept, well clean, so that people can have a place to. Can
you estimate how much you have spent so far?
So far, per the budget, we are somewhere around 6 million Ghana cedis. That is the amount that we spent so far.
What is the budget you have voted for this?
We voted for 20 million Ghana cedis. That is how much we voted.
And this 20 million was decided when?
From the beginning, Samson, the numbers that we had was around 6,000 in the safe havens. Later, NADMO counted that those who have moved into friends' residence, into families' residence, they need to count them. They counted them, and the numbers were given to us about 4 days ago, which was around 26,000. But we voted about 10 million Ghana cedis when the numbers were around 6,000 as NADMO gave us. When we found out the numbers were going up, we added the additional 10 million to it.
Right. Now, seeing that it is not setting when you are pausing in the spill, are there any further, activities and plans that you are putting in place to take care of what you had said already, you foresaw, you predicted, and it appears to be going the manner in which you predicted it?
The plans in place, the lapses that we've seen, maybe we have to revise our emergency preparedness plan. The other thing is work with government to get the Kwalugu Dam in place, also to make sure that some of the water upstream the dam is contained in case we have such huge amount of volumes of water raining into the dam directly. These are some of the things we think that we are working towards to be sure such events, if it should occur in future, should not be as severe as we are seeing it today.
Do you have a plan for distilling of the estuary of the river?
Samson, we've been dredging the lower water bit of the river for some time. Last 4 months, we brought in, we had a contract with 2 dredging companies to come and dredge the lake for us. They came in with their dredgers somewhere last 4 months. As they were coming, I think the dredgers were huge, so they had to chart a channel so that they can sail through to where they have to dock. So as they were charting, I think they caused a bit of turbulence of the bed of the lake, and caused a bit of discoloring of the water. The communities took us to court that we've caused a bit of turbidity of the water. We were able to resolve this issue about a month ago. So the dredging company is now gathering themselves to come back and start the dredging, hopefully by the end of this year. The 2 companies will be dredging. Ourselves, we are going to dredge. But the dredging of the lake, I would say with the situation that we find ourselves in, would not have affected so much the challenges that we are facing. No,
but it would have been helpful. The reason you have a plan to be dredging, correct? In fact, you have a unit responsible for that dredging, correct?
Yes, but that one is mainly to take care of the snails by the river banks, so that those who go into the water are not infested with behaviors and water. That is the main reason, so that the seawater can really travel more into the river and kill those worms and snails. That is the main essence of the dredging, and also to cut the estuary so that the water, when it's flowing, can also flow. The river water has to have its main course of flowing into the sea, and the sea also coming in for the ecological system to work. The dredging is not mainly for flood control. That is not the main essence of the dredging.
But it's part of it.
I would say it is as focused. It's not the main essence for flood.
Yeah, and your unit for the dredging is equipped to do this business, does it not?
We've been dredging for the past couple of years. We just had a challenge with our dredger. That's why we have to get private dredgers to come and dredge for us. But we are still working on fixing
the time you got private dredgers, then you have encountered a problem with doing the dredging. When you were doing it on your own, you didn't seem to have this problem.
Which problem are you referring to, please?
You have said that the dredging had to stop.
Yes, because our machine had a challenge. The machine is about 20 years old. It had a challenge. So we have to get the new dredgers to come in to dredge for us.
All right. But when you say that you foresaw what is happening and things are going the way you predicted them and so on, don't you feel, hindsight, that there was something you should have done extra?
So I mean, as extra in terms of what if you can
avoiding the devastation or minimizing the devastation.
Samson, that's why we started with the 20,000. Because we know the extent of devastation that may occur if per all the data that we had, what we should have done to create the room for the spillage. To save life, we started with the 20,000 and gradually increased it to where we are today.
Okay.
It was not to just open for it to go to create room so it can contain more water. So it was a decision call that we made us start gradually, give room for people to evacuate, save their lives, and then at least where we are today, when it gets there, we may not lose any life.
Thank you very much, and we wish you the best as you continue to help and assist the affected in the process, and hopefully that the dam doesn't see a rise in water from this point on, so that it will be stopped. I'm going to the MP for Northong, whose area was most affected at the beginning. I don't know if at the same time, as of now, his area is the area that is that badly affected. So a while ago, the gentleman I was speaking to from the VRA is Edward Eko Obeng Kenzo, Deputy Chief Executive, Engineering and Operations of the Volta River Authority. In law, from the way he puts things in the law of thoughts, they'll say once you foresaw what might happen, then you may be liable for failing to do what you ought to do against what you foresaw. Let's see how it goes. Now, let's bring on the MP for Northong, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Always a pleasure, Samson.
Right. As we understand, you have not been able to return to Accra and get any rest, because you definitely cannot be resting whilst your people are suffering, and you have been on the ground all this while. And this morning, as we are speaking to you, you are right there. Let's talk about how coordinated the relief is, if you think that is an important angle of the discussion to look at. How coordinated the relief is, and going forward, is there some permanent approach in sight?
Well, thank you very much, Samson. Regards to you and your listeners. Kindly permit me to respond quickly to the interview that you had with Mr. Edward Obeng Kenzo of the VRA. I have to be honest with you that after listening to him, I'm even more depressed and I'm even more angry. For the VRA to be telling us this morning that they knew, they foresaw, they predicted that things are going according to what they expect. And we, as community people, were not given this picture. I feel so outraged. You don't treat human beings this way, Samson. As member of parliament for the area, nobody contacted me from the VRA. As I speak to you, there has been no engagement. So if you knew that this spillage was going to be one of a kind, extraordinary, unprecedented, historic, it was going to be so devastating in its effect, in its impact, why not tell us to prepare and to evacuate? And then, after telling us, you even must follow up to make sure that there has been an evacuation. He is telling us that it is not the duty of VRA to have informed the military, to have informed central government, the presidency, and that they left that for the assembly. Jesus Christ. Are these VRA officials listening to themselves? Do they know what they have put thousands of Ghanaians through? So you knew that this was going to collapse over 500 houses. More than 30,000 people will be displaced. The whole of Mefe virtually will be submerged. As I speak to you, something, villages, entire villages have been wiped out. I'll bring you to Siko. I'll bring you to Kesimekofe, to Volokome, to Dofokome. There is virtually no building surviving in this village. So you knew that this is what was going to happen, and you didn't tell us. Look, something. He talks about the simulation they did on the 11th of May. I received reports from the assembly members who took part in that simulation in Mefe here on the 11th of May. Bolo, my assembly member, presented a report. Of course, once again, they didn't involve MP. According to the report I received, the simulation was done with reps from the military, from NADMO, from the police, from the fire service, and from the ambulance department. The question I asked this morning is that where were all these people when they were spilling? There was no military, no NADMO, no ambulance, no fire service. You come and do simulation months ago. Tell the people that when you are going to open the valve, when you are going to spill, all of these people will be there to help you and evacuate you to higher ground. Then when the actual day comes, the D-Day comes, none of these people were informed. Today, something asks you, and you say you left that for the district assembly. I mean, how cruel can people be? So I asked, where was the military? Where was the ambulance service? Where was the fire service? Where was the police? It had to take young volunteers and myself, those who could help, physically moving the vulnerable, lifting them out of flood water. We were taken by surprise. You say that it takes about 24 to 48 hours for the water to get to the lower basin. If you had given us even just 1 hour notice, people will have salvaged valuables. People have lost everything, something. Just come to the camps and talk to people. They couldn't even take their money, their certificates, their medication, even clothes, things that personal things that they need to survive. Nothing. And then VRA is telling us that things are going according to plan. So the plan is that these camps should continue for the rest of the month, going into November, into December, in schools. Something. Do you know that all these camps, I now have 21 camps in my constituency. They are all in schools. As long as these camps continue to serve displaced people, it means disruption in the academic calendar. My people are losing academic time. The rest of the country, children are in school. They are going to be writing the same BEC, the same WATI. So VRA is fine. They are okay that thousands of children, as I speak to you, can't have access to their classroom blocks because that is what is now serving as makeshift. Where are tents? Where are decent residential facilities that we could relocate these people to? Who lives in a classroom? Which human being can live in a classroom? No washroom.
So obviously, this was the extent of their planning and how they intended to execute it. You see, when you listen to duty bearers sometimes, and I've been told here to try not to, let my emotions get the better part of me when you are interviewing because you're a professional, you're supposed to do some of these things. But we have seen situations where the people are just rushing and they are being helped and they are losing their things as they try to get into safer grounds. and where they are even going, the school classrooms that they were supposed to be housed, some of those classrooms have also been, submerged. So I asked myself, what exactly was this plan long ago? There were people who wanted to access health care in this situation, and they could not be giving attention because they didn't have their NHIA card. It took the Ghana Health Service Director to issue an order that people should be attended to whether they have or they do not have a card. So that brings me to the question again, what exactly was this plan?
Yes, and who has that plan? And why was that plan not shared? We are community leaders. Why don't we have a copy of that plan? As an MP for the area, why can't I have access to that plan? Why didn't I know about this plan? And what is unfolding before our very eyes? Are they happy with their plan? We have a humanitarian crisis. You have sent people to classrooms, no washroom, there is no place to sleep. We are now scrambling all over the place, getting them mattresses. I mean, they are under the vagaries of the weather, mosquito bites. The GMA officials we brought in, the doctors, are telling us that already people are presenting with cases of cholera, of typhoid, skin infections, I mean, respiratory illness because of the congestion. And you tell us that things are going according to your plan. I mean,
Okay.
So sometimes you wonder, is
so
there some agenda? I mean,
so while they are not overwhelmed, it looks as if all of us sitting, here and watching things unfold, appreciate this, that it looks like some of you are clearly overwhelmed. Tell us at this point, what is the way forward from where you stand as the MP for the most affected area in the 9 districts in this 31,000 people?
so something I can tell you ab initio, that to us, nothing is going according to plan. The disaster struck, took all of us by surprise. We started with 3 camps. We now have 21 camps. Many more communities have been affected. As I speak to you, according to NADMO official statistics, over 12,000 people in North Tongue are displaced. And these displaced people are putting up in classrooms, day schools, primary schools, junior high schools. We have only Mapes and Kizito as the boarding school, but not built for the numbers that it is containing. Then there is the issue of the looming public health crisis. The Ghana Health Service has warned. When the water levels rose, the water took over places like mortuaries, cemeteries, public toilets, the sewage systems, landfill sites, very, unwholesome places. And the water is now contaminated. This is water that the people are used to drinking, cooking with, bathing and all of that. So we are now trying to get them to stay away. We're bringing them potable water because Ghana Water Company cut water supply. ECG also cut, electricity supply. So we need to have proper camps. That is why our chiefs have suggested, for example, that Saglemi housing is just 30 minutes drive from North Tongue. It's not far from here. Why can't we relocate the people, the displaced people, the over 12,000 displaced people in North Tongue and the additional 20,000 or 25,000 elsewhere? Can't Saglemi, for example, help so that we can free these makeshift camps or safe havens, as they call them, for education to resume? Because as we speak, the future of the children is at stake. I have had to engage volunteer teachers and university students on vacation. And on Monday, we'll be starting some classes within the camps. But that's just an interim measure. It's not a medium to long-term solution. Then we need to also find more relief items for these people. VRA is saying they bought some medications. I don't know where those medications went, because I had to, if you talk to the GMA, I had to buy the medication they are using. And that's what they have been using in our medical caravans that we are operating across the various camps. I must also emphasize something, that as we speak, what the people need, even in those makeshift camps, they don't have all of it. Public toilets is a major challenge. It was only yesterday that NADMO brought a few portable toilets. The doctors have told us that if we don't address the worsening sanitary conditions, there will be an epidemic which will then extend beyond our borders. It will become a national crisis, public health crisis to deal with. So it's not just, a challenge so far away from our doorstep. If we all don't rally and solve some of these immediate needs, it will affect all of us. So there's enormous work to be done, serious work to be done in terms of even how we offer psychological support. I mean, I brought in a few clinical psychologists, but the numbers are not good enough. It can be better, because imagine losing everything that you have, both at home and then at your worksite. Most of them are farmers. All their farms, their fish ponds, their shops are gone. Right. Everything. So they have nothing left. And that is why something, if you permit me, let me use this opportunity to thank very sincerely from the depth of our heart, on behalf of the chiefs and people, those who have reached out to us, and thanks to stations like yours, mobilizing assistance for us. If I can run through the list quickly of all those who have come to...
Please do. We'll make time for you.
Thank you very much, Samson. The Tanker Owners Union of Ghana, the Race Group, BKQ Foundation, Christian Council of Ghana, Rafimex Company Limited, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, Passion Airlines, Gokals Pharmaceuticals, Atlantic Pharmaceuticals, Baltic Ghana Limited, Kelmed Pharmaceuticals Limited, Ghana Medical Association, the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, the Catholic Relief Trust, Game and Game Associates, Evangelical Presbyterian Church, Ghana, Maranatha Oil, Mawum's Construction, and please permit me to really spend some time on the Sky Group of companies. They didn't only bring relief items a truckload, they did not only offer insurance for anybody who may die in the camp, valued at 2.5 million cedis for their dependents. They have also offered to help us build some housing so that we can relocate, because when they went round, they were saddened that people were congested in classrooms and children can't have access to the classrooms to continue with their education. So they asked us that if we can provide free land, they will help us to construct housing to at least dislodge some of these displaced people into those housing projects. And I can confirm some people secured the land that they need at 3 locations, and they have sent in their contractors, the subsidiary called Construction Ambassadors. And as I speak to you, construction is ongoing. I was with them earlier in the day this morning. The contractors are working so fast, and we hope that they are promising that in record time, in about 3 weeks, these houses will be ready so that we can relocate.
About how many houses are we looking at?
They are looking at housing for capacity to take 500 people.
500
people. Yes, please.
This is a private initiative?
Yes, a private initiative.
And that brings me to the final question for you before you take leave of us. How is this relief effort being coordinated in such a way that it will benefit those actually in need?
Great question, Samson. So I have a rule that items should not be sent to anybody's house, any office, any warehouse. These groups will tell you that when they have come here, we've called everybody, the DC, NADMO, the chiefs, assembly members, the community leaders, and then most importantly, the victims. Indeed, often we do it in the camps because there are many camps. We select if the donors have time and they don't mind crossing the dangerous rivers with us. I mean, these man-made rivers into the camp. We cross with them, and then we give the items directly to the victims. KFC has told us this morning that they are on their way to feed 1,000 children. They will do the feeding directly. We have told them that we are overwhelmed, so we don't have enough hands. So they should come with as many staff as they can mobilize, and we will be happy to see them feed the children directly, and that's what we are doing. We are setting up now.
So I'm asking about the coordination, because it definitely looks like this is something beyond people like yourself, MP or DCE, so that the state can be in the picture in a bigger way.
Ideally, that should be the case. I was expecting the interministerial committee to really have set up some platform, some avenue. Will you be surprised to hear something that we are still waiting for an invitation from the interministerial committee? I saw a statement that this matter will be discussed at the cabinet retreat this weekend. So hopefully, after that cabinet retreat, they will get better coordinated. But we cannot wait. I mean, my people are dying. I can't wait for any interministerial committee or any invitation. So we are doing our best. And
that's understandable.
But we make sure that on the ground there's no partisanship. When Sky Group came, they themselves said it in their remarks. They were so impressed that the NDC chairman, MPP chairman, all the constituency executives were seated together, same place. The DC was there. I was sitting next to him. We are working together. This is not a partisan issue. These floods have not discriminated. This man-made flood, the VRA-induced flood, have not discriminated between NPP and NDC. So we are working together. And on the ground, we are coordinated. At the top, I wish that there was better coordination. We are not seeing that yet.
Okay.
Probably
thank you.
The retreat,
Thank you very much. And I've heard you raise the need for declaration of a state of emergency. Don't you think that the president, after having set up the interministerial committee, you have the chief of staff who is chairing, the minister for national security, minister for interior, defense, energy, finance, local government, works and housing, roads and highways, environment, sanitation, lands and natural resources, and information. Don't you think that this is a vehicle that can be formidable in ensuring better coordination to bring relief and perhaps permanent resolution to this situation? Do you still need a state of emergency?
Yes, we still do, because as ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, when I reach out to our international partners, they indicate that if government declares a state of emergency, it goes a very long way. That's what they need to trigger their assistance, their emergency response mechanism. I mean, all of them, the UN system, all our bilateral, multilateral partners, they have said that. So it will bring in the additional resources we need to address this challenge. So the interministerial committee does not solve it. And if you give me a few seconds on permanent solutions, since you're interested in that, we are also really passionate about a permanent solution. We can't continue to be, paying this price. This is a sacrifice we have to carry so that all of us will have electricity. The entire country will be powered. We can industrialize. We can transform our society. But a few cannot continue after giving up their land and not even having been fully compensated, continue to be suffering these floods in this manner. And VRA people think it's nice, it's predictable, it's going according to their plan, and all of those things they are saying. So we are demanding an urgent engineering solution. We believe that modern engineering should allow for these excess water to be rechanneled through tunnels and be used for something else, irrigation, agriculture, other useful things.
At least the VRA budgeted, is it 20 million, he says, for this. That 20 million can do something going forward, correct?
Again, Samson, let me tell you that I'm disappointed that VRA is only talking about relief items now and 20 million. We are talking about resettlement and compensation. VRA should be told in very clear language that they will not be allowed to get away with this. We demand full compensation.
Do you know?
We have already put our lawyers on standby. We will bring class action if we do not hear of a comprehensive plan to compensate all of my victims, all of these Ghanaians who do not deserve what they have been put through. And that notice must go clear to VRA.
Do you know?
Just a second.
Yes.
We are filing a motion. Yesterday, the minority leader announced this in Togakope when they came to do their presentation. We will be filing a motion demanding an independent parliamentary inquiry into this whole affair. And so these are not matters that we are just going to take the VRA's word for it.
Okay, good to hear that the possible court action is not the first resort. But do you know if VRA has an insurance policy for such a situation?
No, we haven't been informed. The only insurance package we have had is from
First Sky
Serene Insurance for people who may die in the camps.
All right. Thank you very much. Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa is the MP for North Tongue, and as we learned, his constituency was the hardest hit at the start. We don't know if that is still the situation, because at the time, it was about 15,000 that we were counting. And then in the course of the week, we're counting to 26,000. And this morning, it's confirmed that 31,000 plus is what we have to be dealing with. I need to take a quick break, but maybe because engineer is on and there has been direct responses to him, reactions to some of the things he had to say, we can give him a brief opportunity if he has some reactions to make or rebuttals, and then we'll take a break. When we return, NADMO is here with us because, as the VRA says, they dealt with NADMO and expected NADMO, of course, to take on the rest of what needed to be done. Yes, engineer, if you are still with us, can you tell us if you have any response to the concerns that the Member of Parliament for North Tongue has raised?
Samson, as stated, with the EPP plan, the paramount is to make sure lives are saved. That was the paramount issue, to make sure we save lives. As so far as I said, no life is lost. Aftermath, whatever to discuss will be discussed. The agencies being referred to were all on the ground. The military were informed. All of them were informed. It was not NADMO's responsibility to inform the military. We sent letters to all these agencies. They were on the ground. Relief item got to the community the day we opened the gate to discharge 183,000 cubic feet per second. The next day, relief items were in about 4 of the districts being distributed. We won't say that everything is as it's supposed to be and everything is so good as it is, but we think that as the situation that we find ourselves in, the life of the people that have been affected is what we are really concentrating on to make sure.
How much, I think Samuel Kujeto's concern central was, how much was your involvement, NADMO and the rest, in the evacuation?
The involvement of evacuation, Samson, NADMO and the military and other agents, that is their expertise. And they were really involved in moving the people. We won't say that they were just sitting waiting for people to move themselves. But we know they were really involved in moving the people. Our people were on the ground from day one. And they were also involved in making sure people move to the safe haven.
How do you explain this? And it might appear small, but it was a big issue for me when I heard it. When some of the women were interviewed and they said they are seeking to access healthcare, and they were told that because they've lost their NHIA cards, they cannot be attended to. And it took the Director General of the Ghana Health Service to issue an instruction to instruct that they should be attended to whether they have a card or they don't.
Samson, with this call, as you just said, it has to do with the health issue. So it's Ghana Health Services' responsibility to make sure these things are well looked at.
No, the essence of the question is, if it was planned as you project, then you would have taken care of all of these, that people don't need to show a card before they are attended to.
Yes, something. The agencies are the experts in what they do. They have to set their protocols of what they have to do to make sure. So Ghana Health Services even said they even did a simulation in July in the community. Did a simulation of how they should contain the people if these things should happen. So I would say that to us, per the EPP, we think that it was executed to as planned for. Right. People have said that we should have looked at it. Something I told you that from Akosombo to the sea is only 3 meters. 3 meters over a span of 70 kilometers means the place is very flat. If you want to create even a dike to hold the water, the volume of water coming is 183,000 cubic feet per second. Times 60 times 60 times 24 is a day. Which dike will you construct to hold this amount of water? And this is not the nominal operation. It's not the normal operation of VRA. It's an incident that has happened. The normal operation of VRA, nobody has said there was flood in these communities. And that is something that maybe we want people to really understand, that this is something which is not normal, and it should not be considered as normal standard operating procedures.
Do you have an insurance cover for these cases?
That one I can't make a call on that. For that.
You can't make a call?
Yes.
You've been operating this for how many decades now? And you know that these things will happen. And as you have said, this is the 6th spillage. And when it spilled, even though this is only comparable to 1967, you say, some issues may come up. And it has not occurred to the VRA that you need to take an insurance cover for such a situation?
I have to find out. I can't sit here and say I know whether that.
You mentioned that the place is flat, and creating another sort of reservoir to hold excess water may be. Is it a suggestion that that may be an impossible task? Okay. Okay, his is frozen. It's okay. Thank you very much. We'll leave it here. We'll return with NADMO, and then we have an expert in this area also. They issued a statement in the course of the week, and are also joining us to look at the best ways to get to the victims, and permanently in future, what should we be doing? You know, it's about a month and a half or so that I was here to do Samson's Take, and I spoke about the curse of leadership in Africa and the fact that the Akosombo Dam was being spilled, and somebody took pictures of how the water that is being spilled is running through irrigable land, just wasting, and later will cause us trouble. I can't believe that we can't have a solution to this. We've heard politicians say even the Bagri Dam that is spilled in Burkina Faso coming into the country always annually, it kills the people in the Upper East and other areas. Meanwhile, we need the water. It looks like a no-brainer.
Wager as well.
And wager also. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And we have been speaking to Edward Eko Obeng Kenzo, Deputy Chief Executive Engineering and Operations, Volta River Authority. We will shortly be speaking to Seji Saji, Deputy Director General, NADMO, Technical. We also have an expert, research fellow, Hans Rothenberg Institute, University of Hohenheim, Germany. Sulemana Isifu will also join us shortly. In the studio, we have Alexander Segbefia, Director, NDC International Relations Directorate. We spoke earlier to Harry Cosmos Amevo, a businessman in the regions there. Quite his business is scattered around. He deals in toiletries and he reports. And we showed you videos of some of his goods that have been damaged. He has them in some 4 or 5 different locations, including Ada, and they have all been lost. He says he's lost about 200,000 Ghana cedis to the spillage. Now, this show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN, everywhere you go. Ashasi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 solid years. Duroplast, they are producers of quality PVC and HDPE pipes and water tank. Where Duroplast goes, water will flow. Not flow to the extent of destroying and devastating you. DBS Industries, roofing Papa Fie, My Way, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex tanks, it's strong, it's tough. Flamingo paints, simply superior. Seed, self-employed enrollment drive. It's your future, so own it. So good news is that it's not only people who are in public employment that can contribute by way of SNET, so that in the rainy day, they can use that. And that's what SNET is doing. If you are in private employment, self-employed, however it is, for as long as you can find some money, SNET is encouraging you to keep some of it, just small bit of it, against, the day that you will be in need. Best Brain Publication, Tomorrow Education Today. Hoptel is everything you. Doormasters, they are also proudly one of our sponsors. Now, let's get on the line again. And let's bring in NADMO, because as you heard Engineer Kenzo, NADMO has a central role to play. Of course, we have heard about them also being on the ground and seeking to help. Seji Saji, Deputy Director General, Technical, NADMO. Thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you, Samson.
Yes.
And good morning to you and your various listeners and viewers.
Right.
And my co-panelists as well.
Right. So I have observed that it's been quite a difficult period for you, NADMO, as well, as you go around the place seeking to get relief for the people and perhaps getting overwhelmed by the current circumstances, or you're also not overwhelmed by it?
Well, certainly a difficult situation, as you rightly described, but that is what we are mandated to do by law as an organization. So we cannot say we are overwhelmed.
Right. We understand that as far back as May, you were part of the process and having been informed by the VRA to sensitize the people. What was the nature of this sensitization? And today, 1 to 10, how do you mark yourself? How do you rate yourself?
Well, because we are still in this situation and the situation is unfolding, I will not even attempt or even veer in that direction. We are in the middle of a response operation, and we are doing everything, marshalling all resources, trying to coordinate all agencies and individuals and everybody to respond to our brothers who are unfortunately, our brothers and sisters and children and everyone who are unfortunately found themselves in this situation. So this is not a time to be doing a meeting. This is a time to act, to make sure that so far we have not lost anybody as a result of this situation, and it remains that way until the spillage is over. I am sure you're already aware that the spillage is ongoing. The indications we get is that it might go up to the month. So that is what we are currently involved in.
It's a public service, and we are interested in knowing how well you are doing or how badly you are doing, so that the public who pays you to do this job can determine whether you should continue to do it. Do you think you are doing a good job with this?
Well, that's the difficult part of it. At least let's try and save our brothers, so that after that is done, the jury is out there. How we have performed, that evaluation will be done, and I mean, whatever decisions will be taken, that's fine. But we think that at this moment, we should all as a country be focused.
That is clearly understood, sir. That is clearly understood. But to the extent that you can't seem to find shelter for the needy, those who are in this vulnerable situation, we should say that you are failing.
Well, that is the difficult part of the job. Let me say that there have been a lot of issues that have been thrown out there, and a lot of issues that you have discussed this morning. But there's something I think that we are losing sight of. No matter how well you have an emergency preparedness plan, no matter how you prepare, we are not looking at the word disaster. When disasters happen, you might not fully estimate the extent and the level of destruction that will happen. Let me give you a typical example. When we started the response activity, for some strange reasons, intermittently there was calls jammed. No call will go through out of the area, no call will come out. But because we had done that simulation, we easily fell on the National Signals Bureau, who came to set up a GOTA system that we can communicate among all these 9 districts. So the issue is that disaster itself, there's nowhere in the world those who help us do our simulation exercise from other countries will tell you that you might not be able, there are even times that the whole preparedness plan will have to be thrown away because the disaster anticipated has taken a different dimension.
But this was planned far in advance. So it is expected that you will not be in want of shelter for those you estimated will be affected.
Yes, and we are not in want of shelter. Well, let me just briefly take you back a bit on this simulation exercise. The planning for the simulation exercise started way in 2022. NADMO simulated the document that was developed for the country, which was earthquake response. If you remember carefully, the president put a team together to come up with an earthquake response for the country. When that document was completed, NADMO, together with the North Dakota National Guard and the U.S. Embassy providing technical support, simulated that document. As part of the stakeholders that participated in that simulation exercise was the VRA. After we presented our report after the simulation exercise, the VRA then approached us that they have an emergency preparedness plan. And that plan have been simulated, they have done tabletop simulation exercises, but this time they want to carry out a full-scale simulation exercise. And participating in the earthquake simulation exercise, they thought that it was going to be very useful for them. Then we started planning. We fell on our American partners to also provide the technical support. So that was the planning that went up to the 11th of May, when we had the exercise. The exercise was to test the emergency preparedness plan of the VRA and try to make an update or review to make it suit the current circumstances so that in the event that there is an emergency as we have it, we will be able to respond and respond appropriately. Little do we know that after this simulation exercise, 2-3 months down the line, we'll be having a full situation on our hands. But what the simulation exercise did for us as disaster managers, whose responsibility is to coordinate response efforts to be able to respond appropriately to disasters, was to create that synergy among response agencies. So in all these districts, there was already a standing relationship within the agencies that work in response to disasters. So, for example, we have the military, we have the police commander, we have the head of ambulance service, the head of fire service, the head of the education service, the planning officer, the coordinating director. All of these people at the assembly, they belong to a committee that we operate through called the Disaster Management Committee, chaired by the district chief executive. Their responsibility in terms of disaster management is to have a plan and respond appropriately when something happens. When this incident unfolded, when we had the notification that this spill was going to happen, we channeled this notification to all these disaster management committees. And you know how the assembly system works. You have assemblymen in every electoral area. That is why even though the MP of the area, the Northern MP who just spoke, even though he said that he was not aware of the simulation exercise, but he had a report from his assemblyman. That assemblyman is assemblyman for that locality who participated in the simulation exercise. So for sensitization, putting the message across, we actually did that. But the challenge, which some of the panelists have mentioned earlier, something like this, the last time it happened at this scale is when I was not even born. And there have been series of spillage, and people who live in those areas have seen the spilling. So if you send out warning and notification, it will be like what has been happening. They didn't know until the rate of spillage was increased. We all knew they started on the 15th. But 2 to 3 weeks later, the volume increased. It is the volume that increased that has caused what has happened. But immediately, we were on the ground to assist people. And because we had the
advantage after the 1967 occurrence is that there has been the opportunity to do this so many times before today. And so it helps to prepare better. Now to my question, how many of the 31,000 in the 9 districts have you been able to supply what they need?
Well, we have 2 categories of the displaced persons. Those we are holding in the safe havens, and those who are living in the communities that have not been affected with friends and family. We did our update this morning, and I put out the 31,000 figure from our national emergency operations center, which we have set up at the Northtown District Assembly. We have close to 8,000 affected persons in all the safe havens across the 8 districts. Now, the 9th district, which is the Adan West, has not yet recorded any affected persons. So though it is 9 districts downstream the Volta Dam, it is only 8 that we have recorded affected victims. And in total, we have close to about 8,000 of affected victims in those safe havens. The highest the highest is in North Tongue. About half of that number, or a bit more, are in the safe havens in North Tongue. And we have quite about 3,000 in Central Tongue. And we have about 660 as of this morning's count in Adan East. And we have about 420 at Chai Usutuku. If you take 8,000 out of the 31,000, we are looking at close to 23,000. And most of these people are living with friends and family. For those in the safe haven, we are attending to their needs and continuing our assessment and dealing with it as it comes up. So you will have realized that from the beginning, we didn't have a mobile clinic, but now we have a mobile clinic there. At the beginning, we didn't have a mobile toilet, but now we have it. As for delivery of food, we started with supply of cooked food, but after the first, second, and the third day, we stopped distributing cooked food and we are distributing dry rations because the people have put themselves into groups and they have started cooking too as well. Now the challenge is reaching those who are with their families and friends. We are working closely with all the assemblymen in the affected communities, working with our zonal NADMO staff, some community leaders, and some traditional authorities to identify those people and support them. We have not as yet been able to support all the 23,000 because we are in the process of identifying such people. Now, the UN Interagency Group on Emergencies, there's a standing committee of the UN in Ghana, which we have been working with as NADMO, led by the resident coordinator of the UN and heads of the World Food Program, World Health Program, IOM, came in with a team of their staff to come and help us in continuing the assessment and the actual registration of people.
What is your most need now? Hello, Mr. Seji Saji. What's your most need now?
Yes, our most need now is what we have started working on this morning. We are receiving a number of energy bulbs or energy lights, solar energy lights, to be used in some of these safe havens because some of these safe havens, power supply to these safe havens have been cut because the power source to those places are also submerged in water. And there's a pressing one that the access route to the biggest safe haven, which is the St. Kizito, is only by boat. That water that the boat is used on, that water is completely contaminated. The Ghana Health Service has put out a notice and declared those waters and that particular place as a public health emergency. And what we want to do is getting an access route into the safe haven. And luckily, we have found an access route. The contractor came on the site to look at the feasibility study because it's going through people's farms, and a few houses will have to be pulled down or so. So the contractor is coming in with the machines today to start working. It is around 4 to 5 kilometers because it stretches from Mato to Mefe. If that is done, we will be able to cordon off or block completely transportation on that contaminated water, because that is what we fear, that in the next few days, if we are not able to deal with this properly, we might have a different situation on the hand. So we are hoping that the work on that access route might be completed today or tomorrow, so that we can have access to that place.
So good job there. But for how long? As you hold these people in churches and in classrooms that are also getting, affected, what's the plan? How long are they going to be in these places and live this, rough? Obviously, it's not comfortable.
Well, Samson, that is the difficulty, because we don't know when this is going to end. We keep recording affected persons every day, though the rate at which we record affected persons has reduced considerably as compared to when it started some few days ago. We are unable to put an exact date or timeline on when this is going to stop, because even when it ends, the waters in those communities that have completely been inundated, those communities that have completely been inundated, it will take quite some time for those waters to recede and even dry up. And even if they dry up, almost all those structures, you cannot immediately get back into those structures. Some work has to be done.
All right.
So it is going to take some time, but we are just hoping and praying that the situation will stop.
Right.
Then we can continue with trying to see how we can work on getting these people back to
my final question to you, and I know you are also very busy. My final question to you will be, now that you have a 13-member powerful ministerial committee to help in the situation, what are some of the things you are thinking about long-term? Harvesting the water that will come and be spilled so we don't spill and waste it. The dam itself. Every dam must have a certain mile radius that will be cording off certain areas, and inhabitants are not allowed to go beyond that. A friend of mine is telling me about his involvement in the design of the Utopia Dam, and about 50, mile radius cordoned off, no habitation allowed, and beyond that, what is even allowed is irrigated farm. Are you thinking about any of these yet?
Well, what we are doing on the ground, most of the reports goes up through our ministry to the interministerial committee, and I am sure that they are taking a lot of these things into consideration, so that the medium to long-term solutions will be found.
All right.
But as I said, we are a humanitarian organization. Our concern immediately is to try and get out of this, though it is important we start looking into the future. But we are hoping that those who are still in their homes and the water hasn't gotten to where they are now, they could quickly alert us. We have our Emergency Operations Center at the District Assembly of North Tongue, where we are responding to all these 9 districts from. We have an emergency number, we'll put it out. If you want help to get you and come to a safe haven, we will do that. So I'll put it out if I am allowed.
Please go ahead. Go ahead with the emergency line.
02911 03257, then 02911 03251. I'll take it again.
Yes, please.
02911 03057. Then 02911 03251.
Okay, so the numbers are 02911 03057 and
No,
0.
Please let me 02911 03257.
257. Thank you. And then the other one is 02.
The other one, the 7 at the end, you just change it to 1.
Thank you very much. But I have not heard the NADMO. How are you coordinating relief? There are no lines to which NADMO is asking for items to be brought to it like individual organizations and media institutions are doing.
Yes, good. I had a mention of the coordination of relief on during the discussion. Actually, that's what we are also actually involved in. But because the situation, things were happening very fast, a lot of people were bringing in items, but we had already put out this information as to where we are operating from. Some individuals, some corporate organizations have also brought some donations to us. Just yesterday, we received items from Ghana Gas, we received items from WFP, we received items from IOM, and from an oil and gas company too as well. The challenge is that because people are bringing in things, they have other sources and people they contact. But as soon as the contact is made, they want to move in quickly. So that is quite difficult. We are trying to put a structure to it.
All right.
So we have brought in, some of the political parties and some traditional authorities to also be part of this relief administration effort, because we are envisaging that we might be having a lot of implications in terms of this relief administration.
Thank you very much. Seji Saji, Deputy Director General of NADMO Technical. Let me return to the studio, but we begin with Sulemana Isifu, who is a research fellow in the university in Germany. Sulemana, thank you so very much. You are the director of the Center for Climate Change and Food Security, and you issued a statement under your hand on the 17th of October on the spillage of the dam. We are interested in your statement that you issued, more particularly because it projects some permanent solutions. Please share them with us. Please unmute your mic.
Hi, Samson, can you hear me?
Very clearly.
Yes, thank you for having me, and thank you for putting me on the show. So I was just saying that before I go into our statement, I think it will also serve some good for me to comment briefly, especially on the answers given by the VRA boss.
Please go ahead.
I think for him to have said that they are not overwhelmed, I think that is not an honest position to canvass, because if you carefully listen to him, you would realize that at every turn of event, he tells you how they have improved responses, and that, for example, the budget initially allocated has been increased. Now, these responses tell you that they're overwhelmed, because if you were not overwhelmed, then you wouldn't have been changing plans every now and then. So to say that they actually forecasted what is happening, and exactly what is happening now exactly fits their forecast, I think that is not an honest response, and it makes it very difficult for some of us or for citizens to mobilize opinions to support such state institutions. We believe that as state institutions, when you are charged with responsibilities and you are unable to even discharge it, come to the people with honesty. From all the responses that he has given, I'm not convinced. I think that they are overwhelmed. I think that there was something wrong somewhere, and that is why in our statement, we deliberately calibrated our, our proposals in an order of merit. So we started with, for example, asking the government to institute a criminal probe into what has happened. And people would ask, how can there be any criminal criminal activity to be investigated? And Samson, you're a lawyer. You know that once you are charged with responsibilities and you have specific duties to discharge, if you fail to discharge those responsibilities and your failure to discharge those responsibilities lead to a calamity of this nature, then you are liable for what we call criminal negligence. So I believe that there must be some probe into it, because we cannot allow VRA to assess itself and say we did nothing wrong. Yes, they are saying this is the second time they are spilling such volumes. But the question now would be, is it the highest rainfall, or is it the highest volume of water the dam has ever received since 1967? The answer obviously will be no. So if that is the case, that for example, there have been cases where more water has come into the dam than we have now, then it means that there's a problem with the spillage. So you need to balance how much water is coming in and how much spillage is being done. So if you don't calculate the harvesting of the water very well, then you may either, for example, delay in the spillage, or you may spill at a time that you shouldn't have spilled. So that is why we are calling for a probe, and we don't believe VRA is competent enough to investigate itself. That would be conflict of interest, obviously. So we are asking government to, first of all, probe. It could be sheer incompetence. If there's a question of incompetence, then whoever is responsible has to be removed. And if it is not competence, but rather criminal negligence, that is, if somebody was supposed to do something that the person did not do, then we believe that person should be held responsible. We believe this is an inflection point. This is a time for us to move away from the things that we do ordinarily. Under normal circumstance, and I like how you frame the question, Akosombo Dam should be a blessing to all of us. But I mean, from what is happening now, it is becoming more of a nightmare than a critical national installation that is supposed to power all of us.
Right.
And Samson,
beyond your calling for a probe potentially over some negligent conduct, and as we have heard from Samuel Kujeto Ablakwa, they already put their lawyers on standby to contemplate potential civil tort, as in negligence, civil tort, not criminal. You are also saying government should look at permanent solutions, and you have about 3 or 4 of such. Can you take us through some of these? Because that is the most important thing.
Yeah, so Samson, for example, we are asking government to explore the possibility of relocating some of the people permanently. And I don't know, I've not seen any plan from the VRA, for example, that, for example, demarcates or zones of some places and call them, for example, danger zones or red lines, where people are prevented from inhabiting those places. And you rightly mentioned...
But we can presume that will be there. Otherwise, nobody should sit in VRA as, paid to do any work.
Yes, Samson, so that's what you think, but we need to really know if there's something like this. And probably, even if there's something like that, we know that the dam has been built for 50 years now, or 5 decades. Population has increased, so it is possible that, for example, people would have encroached areas where VRA initially zoned off. So in that regard, it is important for us to revisit the issue of zoning of some places and calling them, for example, danger zones.
That's
so
number
this
2.
Must be, yeah, so that should be something that government should look at. We're also, for example, asking government, and I think this is not far-fetched, there must be an engineering solution to this. So we are asking government to explore, for example, ways of expanding the dam or creating reservoirs where some of the water could be harvested. Samson, I don't know if you heard this statement. Netherlands, they normally say God created the earth, but the Dutch created Netherlands. Why? Because the entire country, Netherlands, was in water. They had to battle with the sea and water to get their land back. And that is why they say God created the earth, but the Dutch created Netherlands. So, which tells you that human beings, if we put science into motion, we should be able to find solutions to some of these problems, because I don't think that this is a permanent problem. If it is a permanent problem, then I will ask the authorities to disband the dam. If they believe that there could be a permanent solution, then that solution must manifest immediately. And I heard the Vice President also reiterate the point that there must be a permanent solution. That was the same thing we said when the Bagre Dam also led to deaths, actually. To date, we are still waiting to see what will happen with the Bagre Dam. So we are asking for a situation where engineers, for example, will explore expansion of the dam or creating reservoirs to harvest excess water, which would be used for agricultural purposes and other purposes as well. So that is number 2. And number 3, also, we, for example, are also asking government, number 4, sorry. So we are asking government to put in place robust systems, early warning systems. Yes, VRA says, for example, they did simulations as far back as May. I believe, and if you read our statement, we stated that the simulation was a failure. And that is why we dispute the points made by the VRA deputy CEO that they are not overwhelmed. Because if we are not overwhelmed, and the numbers would not have been increasing by day, and then your plans kept changing. So early warning systems, which factors in or which accounts for climate change effects. And I think that in Ghana, we have not really visited the conversation of climate change as we are supposed to. So, for example, the World Bank and the UN, as well as under the umbrella of the UNFCCC, they are making funds available for countries, developing countries, to access funds to mitigate the effects of climate change. So I would want to know from government, for example, have they factored in VRA in the mitigation plan such that when water comes into the dam and we are unable to contain it, and then it leads to the kind of catastrophe that we've seen, are we able to access funds from this relief that the World Bank as well as UN institutions have made available for developing countries to have access to mitigate the effects of climate change? So clearly, looking at the volumes of water that is coming in, mind you, what has happened also has ecological implications. I'm an ecologist, and I don't want to go into that. But whatever it is, I'm saying that early warning systems should account for climate change effects, and then we should be able to leverage on that to access funds from international institutions that have made funds available for developing countries like ours. And finally, we have also asked government to declare a state of emergency, and we are surprised that to date, government has not declared a state of emergency.
What difference will that make? There is a strong 13-man minister committee to look at this. What will the state of emergency do?
Samson, in Cree, they say that one person cannot cover the face of God. So I don't believe government has enough resources. We know the economic challenges that we are facing. So in order not to do outside gentility home cry, I believe that government should just tell the world that, hey, this problem is beyond us and we need your support. So what state of emergency would do is that it will, for example, help us to rake in additional support from international partners. And I think that the Honorable MP for North Tongu, Honorable Samuel Kujeto Ablakwa, rightly said, because he's a ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and he rightly said that there are partners who are on standby to give us support once the government will be put away our pride as a nation and then ask for this support. So state of emergency is very, very important, because if we are going to use only the resources of government, if we had those resources, and as the VRA boss said, a bit dishonestly, that they were indeed aware that this was going to happen, government would have built those structures, temporary structures, and evacuated those people even before the spillage happened. So for that to have happened, and government is now looking at how to...
Apart from the committee, Ahad Suleiman, apart from the committee, the Agric Minister, Brian Champong, says, quote, I have directed that due to this emergency, $40 million of the World Bank-funded Food System Resilience Program be restructured to restore farmers fully whose farms have been wiped out due to the necessary action taken by the VRA to save all of us.
Yes. So
what else do you need an emergency and a state of emergency to do?
So Samson, I read that statement, and you realize that that is purely for food production. So there are different aspects to this. So for example, there's health issue. So the Agric Minister has access to funds, resilience fund, which I mentioned. For example, climate change adaptation is a fund that has been created for developing countries like ours. So Ghana has access to 40 million. And the minister is saying that it should be restructured in a way that will benefit farmers who have lost their farmlands. That is for food production. I'm not sure the 40 million would even go to the farmers there. If some of it will go to it. But there are different aspects of this whole conundrum that we are facing. So, for example, the health aspect. So that's why state of emergency would be very important. And mind you, something I want to make this point, and I'm very passionate about it.
And that'll be the final point. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm not comfortable when the VRA says that our interest is only to save lives. So he reiterated this point times without number. But what worth would a life be if there's no access to food, if there's no shelter, if there's no clothing? So he cannot say that.
Suleiman Isifu, Director, Research Center for Climate Change and Food Security. I'm seeing your university's logo and name on your screen. It's written in German, is that it? Pronounce it for me.
Yes, so the name is Hohenheim, University of Hohenheim.
University of Hohenheim.
Hohenheim, yes, in Stuttgart.
Thank you,
so
I got it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So let me come back to the studio, to our studio guest. having listened to everyone across the table, what do you have to say?
I think that the agencies involved are not coordinated at all. They seem to be working, even though there's a plan which involves all of them, they seem to be working in silos. And that is going to exacerbate an already difficult scenario. Who is the lead? We have all these ministries who is going to be the lead ministry because everybody has their fiefdoms, and there has to be serious coordination. I mentioned it from the beginning, that coordinating the whole issue is of importance. And when people begin to say, this is my responsibility, I don't know about this, when you're all part of a team, it raises serious concerns for those of us on the outside just watching. So I think the security agencies and the institutions involved, government, must begin to work more closely together and understand that this is actually a mess. That is what it is. Because quite simply, to say that you knew the outcome and have this level of disaster on your hands, it begs the question, what was in the plan that says that schools were going to be occupied for anything up to 3 weeks? Does it say that the plan says that children were not going to go to school for 3 weeks? So what kind of planning is that? Okujeto has said 21 new or 21 shelters. In the plan, how many did they have? And as we sit here now, it just takes one major rainfall again, and we are entering into November, and it's going on. Or even more water has to go out. If that happens and it extends, where is in the plan are they going to do with other communities that are going to be affected? So the plan is a no plan. It appears to be so, because there doesn't seem to have been any anticipation. And that's, in fact, I was quite pleased because when he made that opening remark about the competence and the ability of VRA, because that's what we've been singing all these years. And it is true. They have a lot of competence. VRA stands tall, and you can't fault them. But I think that in terms of joint working on this particular matter, they got it wrong in terms of what they have to be doing or the way information went out as part of a team.
So
not necessarily as an individual.
You suggest they need to collaborate more,
exactly,
work to be seen to be a team more, because that's what you see.
Yeah. It is not one person's issue. The military were involved in the simulation, the police were. Kujutu says, now the thing has happened, where were all of them? And he's saying, oh, they were there. But apparently nobody is seeing them. Nobody seems to know where they are. So quite clearly, the extent to which this has gone, it's not acceptable for us to say that all is well and it was all anticipated and things are where they should have been. I think that is an unfortunate statement. I think that there's a lot that we have to be doing. And I haven't even gone into what plans for the future, because I'm more concerned about, okay, let's deal with what we have now. And I think that they have to be more up and doing. Because it's not looking good. I mean, he who feels it knows it, and Sami is in the middle of it, and he's not in the least impressed. So I think that they have to work a lot harder to bring things to the fore. And you shouldn't, the VRA almost was talking as if they are a silo. We've done what we have to do. And that, no. That's not good enough.
All right, so I have many of you, your comments, I'll share them. We'll take a quick break, and when I return, I'll share them. Kujo says the VRA foresaw all this, but didn't foresee when it will end the spillage. Yeah. Someone actually says, I am very angry at the officer this morning, the VRA's engineer, and what he had to say. let's focus our energies on what we can do to help the people, because presently they are in a very bad shape and they need help. And as you are aware, multimedia group Joy News has also been seeking your help. So if you have any forms of, help that you want to offer, you can direct them through multimedia, and we will also, through the channels as being coordinated, present to them. You can bring them to our studios, our station here at Multimedia, 355 Hanover Street, Kokomlemle here, and we'll receive them and thank you for doing so. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Yes, hold on.
Those who want to know about emergency powers should look under Article 31.
That's correct.
Of the Constitution.
Right.
And it is clear that you don't have to. A question that came to me was, if they declare the state of the whole of Ghana, no, it doesn't have to be the whole country. They can cordon off and say there's a state of emergency in this area. And that is
then we'll get international help.
Exactly, it helps.
Okay.
So
we're already out there begging, so I don't see we have a problem asking help from our.
I think that we should go ahead.
Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
A large family, many children. This man says he loves his family, but cannot provide for their needs. Many of his children go hungry every day. He cannot afford to take the sick ones to hospital. He has managed to send some of them to school, but can't feed them while they learn. He cannot provide a roof over their heads. When it rains, some of them get washed away. The older ones who are surviving his neglect are told to not only fend for themselves, but to send him more and more money each year to cater for the family. But while this man asks his impoverished children to tighten their belts and sacrifice for the family, he drives around in expensive cars, treats himself in the best hospitals, takes loving care of his friends, and makes no apology to his children for their back-breaking work that pays for his lavish lifestyle. Now, just as these children are at their hungriest, sickest, and most impoverished, this Father of the Year announces that he is going to donate a massive chunk of the money they have been paying into the family account to a church project. Why? Because some years ago, he promised God he would do so. Tell me honestly, what would you think of such a father? President Nana Akufo-Addo is clearly a man of his word. He pledged free SHS to Ghanaians, and he has delivered. Maybe we can talk about the quality of the education the children are being subjected to later. But for today, let's just say he's delivering. Now, while he was going around the country promising us free SHS, he was also telling God that if he won the 2016 elections, he would construct a cathedral to the glory of his name. Indeed, after he won the election, he chose to follow through on his promise. President Nana Akufo-Addo made a donation of 100,000 Ghana cedis from his personal money to the National Cathedral project.
The purpose of the cathedral, as I indicated at the sword cutting, was to offer thanksgiving to the Almighty for his blessings to us as a nation, and to address a missing link in the nation's architecture by building a church for national purposes. The challenge of building Ghana's national cathedral, therefore, relates to the mobilization of our people in support of the project.
Clearly, what the president had in mind was not a 100,000 Ghana city cathedral. The fulfilling of his personal pledge to God would cost much more than that. And the president is a man of his word. So, without Ghanaians' permission, he demolished buildings on state grounds, including judges' homes, to make room for his massive personal debt to God to be built. Why should Ghanaians be the ones funding the president to pay a personal debt that he owes to God? But the president didn't stop at the appropriation of state land for his personal project. In Parliament, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta pledged state funding to the cathedral.
Mr. Speaker, this state and church partnership envisaged by the President to develop the National Cathedral is on course. An initiative, the 100 cedis a month club, also dubbed VRA and will be launched by the trustees of the National Cathedral on August 12, 2021, to give as many Ghanaians as possible the opportunity to be part of the history to build the National Cathedral. The aim of the club is to raise 1 million Ghanaians who will give 100 cedis a month for the construction of the National Cathedral.
This week, a leaked document revealed that a donation of 25 million Ghana cedis has been approved as additional seed money. Another leaked document revealed that the architectural firm in charge of the project has already been paid 37 million Ghana cedis for this project. Now, the good book says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." We are all sinners, granted. But the same Bible says we should work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. So again, I ask, why are we abandoning our own salvation to work out Nana Akufo-Addo's? Why are we footing the bill for the president's pledge to God? Ghanaians are predominantly devout and generous Christians. Many people have actually given money to this project already, but many more have not. Some Christians have blatantly refused to donate because they object to being roped in to fund the fulfillment of the president's private pledge. They say their refusal is due to Ghana's multitude of unsolved problems. The roads are bad. Many companies have shut down due to the poor economy. People are out of work. Because we don't have enough money to build drains, Accra floods every year and people die. Due to a lack of money, hospital projects have been put on hold. Because there's no money, the state owes very vulnerable people leap stipends. These people are going without food daily. School lunch caterers are on strike. They are enraged because the government expects them to feed each child on 97 pesos per meal. The government's excuse for this ridiculous amount is that there isn't enough money. There isn't enough money to feed our children, but we have sufficient funds to pay the president's personal debts. Please, God, speak to us. Is this really what you want? Do you really want our leaders to starve us, neglect our basic needs, and leave us to our own fate just so that you can have another cathedral? Because this is what your servant, our president, is doing.
Right. So that was Kojo Jansen. And he sort of brings us some summary. You know, I started something about the cathedral, but I stopped. I just stopped. I'm not the only Ghanaian. There are many Ghanaians. And initially, those of us who were crusading that there should be a location that could be proper for it, rather than this very place, were told how we were the devil incarnate, and that we only say we are Christians by, our mouth, but we don't believe it. The people who are resigning today from the Board of Trustees, do you remember what some of them tell you? Some of them told you? The president said we're Sambalat and we're Tobiases who didn't want God's work to progress. Remember what Duncan-Williams said? That if you said anything that seemed like you were against it, you're almost like the devil. Now, this is where we are. He didn't exactly say that. So, Archbishop Nicholas Duncan-Williams and the Reverend Joseph Eastwood Anaba, very respected, have tendered their resignation. It was a joint resignation. And they say that they asked for some audit and all sorts of things that have not been done. They want a cathedral to be built on integrity. On that basis, they are staying back and wishing those who are at the helm, wishing them well. Yes, Alex, just very brief comments because
we don't have time.
There's really not much to say about this, right?
No, there isn't. We all know the history of the cathedral. From day one, it was shrouded with a lot of concern, just unanswered questions. Many asked questions, including journalists like yourself and others, and they were vilified, for want of a better phrase, in their concerns. In fact, anyone who asked a legitimate question was almost seen as unchristian. And they were just legitimate questions for a plan. If you're going to plan for something, where's the money coming from? How much of the money do you have? Why does the price of the building keep changing? Simple things, nothing complicated. And now everybody, water has found its level, let me put it that way. Everybody is beginning to understand that being associated with this project is not in anybody's best interest who is involved already. Some saw the writing on the wall very early. Otto Bills just said, I'm not part. His name was put there, but I'm not part of it. So he was never part. But there was an intention to get him there, and he didn't take part. Duncan-Williams Mills, who was part, quickly left. Now we have two others, and these are very senior men of God.
Duncan-Williams is credited as the founder of modern charismatic, movement in Ghana.
Exactly, and he's resigned.
Eastwood Anaba, their influence goes far beyond Ghana.
And he's resigned. So, and even whether for paper exercise or whatever, at some point the Attorney General also removed himself from a particular position. So, I mean, the kind of scandal around the cathedral, an edifice that is supposed to be to the glory of God, is unbelievable. And it stands as a blot, this is my fact, a big blot on the leadership style, the leadership of the Nana Addo and the MPP government, because they all pushed it. And the way and manner in which they went was wrong. We all love our God. We are all Christians. We all go to our churches. Don't vilify people for asking legitimate questions about what you were doing, especially when statements had been made that government funds would not be used, and government funds have been used. So here we all are. I have no problem with the leaders of the churches who have left previously and currently, because I think that at any time you must assess where you are with anything.
Right.
And if it comes to the fore that mistakes have been made and the way this is going and I have to come out of it, then kudos to them for knowing that this is the case.
Right. Richard, just some 3-4 minutes. Government must be clear on who is building the National Cathedral. Dr. Opuni Frimpong, Reverend Dr. Kwambida Opuni Frimpong, a former General Secretary of the Christian Council. Are you surprised people like him are asking such questions? Your own Nana Obri Boaheng, former Deputy General Secretary of the NPP, says that we shouldn't be talking about National Cathedral when we can't have sufficient dialysis machines for our citizens. What do you say about the resignation of these two eminent, bishops?
Well, Samson, thank you very much. I think I can hear my brother's voice, and I say very good morning to him. Samson, I think that just like my senior brother just said, no, I don't think anybody has problem with the resignation of Bishop Duncan-Williams and Reverend Eastwood Anaba, or any other person who resigned before. It's a voluntary call to serve, and if they find at the point they cannot continue, I think that they have a prerogative that only they can exercise to continue or not to continue. So there is no quibble about that. But the issues they raised in the resignation, one to do with request for audit. That strangely is one thing that I don't know how they wouldn't know that there's an audit underway. the Cathedral Secretariat engaged, and this, my understanding is that members of the board are fully aware. There was a meeting stating that the audit was going to be commissioned. And I have in my possession a letter that was written to the commission by Deloitte, who they had appointed to audit their boards, stating the parameter, the scope of the investigation, doing so consistent with the Companies Act, and it has specified in full detail what the audit was going to capture. And I am surprised that in the resignation, they're stating that there is no audit. But this audit, as part of board meeting records, states that the audit was called. And so the audit is underway since March. So I'm surprised. If that's the reason, then something is not adding up. Okay? So, and then also, Shraj, my understanding is that Shraj is investigating the project. You see, what I am concerned is that, this thing is about God. And if you look at the Bible, I won't be your best reference for the Bible, but my understanding is that God's way is not our way. The way he chooses to do his things. And if you look in historical, biblical times, God really uses the people. It could just be that the people we have assembled to lead this project, okay, be board of trustees, whatever, are not the people God wants to build his house. Because it happened with Saul. Okay, he couldn't build it. David came to build the house of God. So for me, when I'm talking about a national cathedral,
so they haven't said. We must note that they haven't said they are against it, but they say that they want it built on foundation of integrity and efficiency.
Right. And but that integrity and efficiency is what the audit is going to produce. So if really that's what you want, you would have waited for the audit report to come.
Don't you find it curious that the secretary says that on October 17, the secretary, Dr. Paul Opoku-Mensah, insisted that the clergymen had been aware of a resolution of January 2023, and that there was Deloitte and Touche that had been engaged in March to begin the audit, and they were expected to complete the audit in July 2023, and these board members were unaware, and he said they were updating them as well. Isn't that curious?
Well, I mean, that will be for the board members, because you and I were not there.
Right.
And ideally, when you have a board situation, you know that this information ought to be shared. So if they are saying that it's not shared, why? Then it also even goes to the heart of the matter that are they the right people to do the job? Because it cannot be on a board and the board is advancing a certain